Hello and welcome back to the Mission Accepted podcast. I am so excited with the rebrand because when you think about who you are as a listener and when you think about who these incredible guests are, they really have taken the mission. And I know that there's places in your life where you either had to say yes or decided to say yes. And the mission, honestly, it's like a life journey. But as these entrepreneurs and creatives come onto the show and share with you that pivotal piece that decided for them or they decided for themselves that they needed to make something different, take a different route, go left instead of right. There's a whole, it's a very courageous step and there's a whole unfolding. It's one thing to take the mission once, it's another thing to stay on. And I'm so excited today to introduce to you an incredible woman who I met. Her name is Colleen Biggs, and she is from beautiful Arizona. We were just talking weather earlier. I'm from Canada, so we're not going to have that conversation. But I met her doing something that I have been doing for my business for pretty well 30 years. And I'll tell you, I never seen anyone do it with so much enthusiasm. I was invited by a guest to come on to what she calls a lunch and learn. So it was a women's networking event. Now, I'm going to tell you, it's as part of my story, and you guys have probably heard it. One of my first ventures into business was pretty solo because it was 30 years ago. There wasn't a whole lot for women, and there sure and heck wasn't anything for women with your children. And so there was a collection of us that were considered odd, honestly. No Starbucks, no cell phones, right? Like this was before, oh my gosh, I'm dating myself, but we needed to get together for support. Like we wanted to have our own business. We didn't even know the word entrepreneur. We just wanted to have our own business. And it was not necessarily well accepted culturally that much about going and doing that. And we really wanted to do that. And the whole idea around bringing our children on for the ride, it was a whole different ballgame. So we got together at my house on a Sunday at 2:00. You could bring your kids and everyone chipped in $2. And that was enough money to feed all of us, take care of the kids. And we all took turns. And there are a few of us still in business today, 30 years later. Well, the world of networking has absolutely changed, and it is an incredible form of connection. And that's where this woman really excels. And not only is she an author and a speaker, but this is her wheelhouse. So I absolutely am so grateful that you decided to come on to the show today, Colleen, and share with us a little bit about that.
Thank you, Deborah. There wasn't even the internet 30 years ago. There just wasn't. And, even pre-pandemic, I was doing these events in person. So can you imagine the energy in the room when we're doing these type of networking events in person? They're just so much fun. And we forget to put the word FUN into business. So many of us are just, so driven. I'm going to just use me for an example, Deborah. I'm driven. I persevere. I only need to get knocked down once. I get right back up and I just keep on fighting. And so that becomes serious. And then we forget that you can have fun. So, I add that fun element to my networking events like dancing. And I dance for 10 minutes straight before anyone usually is even popping on. And so I have women popping on 5 minutes early, 8 minutes early, 7 minutes early, because they also will just stand up because they know the music's going to be jamming and they can just dance and your vibration goes up so much. Everything is firing in your brain. Your body feels good. Your blood is pumping. We're giving ourselves all kinds of doses, Pitocin along. We're just killing it in feeling good and vibrational. So that's how we enter the networking arena when I do networking events.
Well, and that's exactly why we're talking today, because I was invited and I was sitting in my chair, just like, we do, right? We do now. We're not doing a whole lot yet back offline. And I'm sitting here and I'm like, oh, this is cool. Now, as a newcomer to this group, I was like, do I dance? Do I not? What do I do? But you could feel that it was different, right? You could feel it was different. Before we get into how people can, learn about networking in a way that can help benefit them or bring them more community, because really that's what it is. So our show is called Mission Accepted. Tell us a little bit about your story. When did you decide to take on this mission, and what was the first step into business for you?
I'm glad that you said that. So I've been in corporate America for three decades. That's a long time to be in corporate America. I'm so thankful for it. I honed so many great skills. Business coaching was my main skill that I honed back then. I had the wonderful advantage and opportunity to help over 300 CEOs launch businesses very successfully. So for me, the mission accepted, when I accepted the mission, it was when I attended a women's retreat. We were all sitting around the table and I was in corporate America, remember? So the questions they would ask the women in the room were always the same. What is it like being a woman in business? What are the hurdles you have to overcome being a woman in business? Because this goes into, an article in a magazine that is men and women. So this is like all about, how do these women do it? How are they conquering breaking the glass ceiling? It kind of gets old after a while when you're the woman in business talking about what's on your plate and how you're able to work with men and all this stuff. They asked a different question that day, and I really do believe it was for me. The only question they asked in the very beginning was, what's your story? Oh my gosh, Deborah. The room was silent for 3 hours. There were 17 of us around the table. You could hear a freaking pin drop. There were tears. There were hugs. There were women just reaching across the table, like, sharing our hearts and being protective, being supportive, having empathy. It was so amazing how close we got as women because somebody asked us to share our story. And in that moment, the gentleman that was running this event, I had known him for several years. I walked up to him and I said, we need to start a women's organization because women do not have anywhere for this. We have nowhere for this. Women in corporate don't have anywhere. Female entrepreneurs don't have it anywhere. We need to create a safe, nurturing environment for women that they can share their challenges. They can share how they've overcome them. They can give tips and tools and education to other women. There's nowhere for this, and we need to build this. The next morning, he announced it. Hey, ladies, keep your eyes out. Colleen and I are going to start a business. That was it. I got snipped in the butt. I mean, in that moment. And I just remember it being like this whirlwind from that point forward of building this community. And it didn't start out, Deborah, the way it looked today compared to the way it had started. There was a lot of evolution over the last several years, and but it still has one coherent piece, which is purposefully bringing women together for support, for education, and for leadership.
That's incredible. And I think it's very important. I mean, here's the interesting thing to that is that you had an epiphany and someone, and the next thing you know, you were in it, right?
Yeah.
So you had the epiphany, you knew enough to act on it. You act on it in that moment, and then you went with it. And so the 24 hours between that time frame, that's where I say a lot of times in business, the goblins will get you. The goblins will get you in the 30 minutes, in the hour, in the week, in the 2 weeks. Sometimes just jumping in, that's called jumping in and then letting it unfold and navigating as you go and having the faith. That's a faith forward decision, right?
There's a reason. Yeah. There's a
Yeah.
reason why my programs and my brand is all called Leap, because I took the leap of faith by saying, I'm going to do this. I had never ran a women's organization before. I didn't know the first thing about running that type of business. What I did know was how to start a business. I'd been doing it for 20 years, right? So I had been helping other people start businesses. I knew the ground up how to build a business from scratch, but I took a leap of faith because not only did I start a business, a few months later, I took a leap of faith and left this cushy benefits, paycheck, salary, all this cushy stuff that I had to this unknown of now being an entrepreneur. And every action I took gravitated, dollars and people and places and things toward me based on where I was vibrating. and how I was doing the work. It wasn't about, I could literally take 2 weeks off and still get a paycheck. It wasn't like that anymore. So that's why my brand Leap exists today. And I created that several years ago, because you truly have to take the leap. And like, Deborah, the fastest path to wealth is speed. Make the decision quickly and correct along the way.
Yeah, absolutely. That is a gemstone. If you're out there and you're wondering and thinking that, a lot of our audience are, singers or actors or artists or entrepreneurs or new, or, I gotta say, even when you have been an entrepreneur for a long time and you get in that groove and you understand it, sometimes even for the ultrapreneur, which I would consider both of us, it's hard to course correct sometimes, because we can even get comfortable in our entrepreneurship, and then to go to the next level gets uncomfortable. I think the thing about being an entrepreneur is getting comfortable in that uncomfortable, making the best decision you can, but leaping anyways, and having the faith or knowingness that you, or the circle that you surround yourself in, which is what I think a lot happens in networking groups. So let's talk that. A girlfriend of mine, anyways, the circle around them will help course correct. I just want to inject, I have a good friend who I met as a client. I used to run a holistic health studio, and like you, I was there for almost 3 decades. I healed and helped a lot of people. So it was difficult to shift over knowing that you had that kind of presence, but I just needed to change who I was serving or how I was serving. But she called me a couple of months ago and she said, let's go for a walk. So we did about 5 weeks ago. And she said, there's something you gave me. There's something you told me. And she said she hadn't told me what she'd been going through, but I knew she'd been going through something for the last 3 years. And so she had, I don't like to use that word, but it was that medical condition that happens a lot for women and lots for everybody, but particularly this one. And so she was on the tail end of it. And she said, years ago, 10 years ago, you gave me a sticky, and I have been using that for 3 years. And as she was talking to me about her experience, I had a girlfriend that was also having an experience like that, just having a little bit of different result. And she said, every queen needs a counsel. And she literally screenshotted this little sticky that I gave her 10 years ago. And I think about that when I think about mastermind groups, networking groups, every queen needs a counsel. So with that, I'm going to lead it into, tell us a little bit more about, some people have never gone into a networking group, or the only group they've ever done has been online or offline. And a lot of times people come, what should you be doing? What should you be looking for? How do you get the most out of coming into something like a networking group? And how can you give the most?
Yeah. First of all, I want to lead with this. If we believe that our network is our net worth, if we truly believe that deep down, then the introvert in some people will feel a little bit more at ease, right? Because for so many people, it is scary for the first time. You said it, Deborah, you have been doing this for years. I would not consider you an introvert, yet your very first time in my community and experiencing my type of networking event, you didn't know if you should stand up and dance or not, right? Because you just weren't sure. You weren't comfortable, and that happens. So let's just address that right off the bat. So when you come into a new networking event, let's say you know nobody in the room. The very first thing that you need to have is a surety in who you are and the clarity of what you have to say, period. So if you know who you are, you're grounded in your truth, you're grounded in your character, your integrity, your values, you know what you stand for, you know what you're an expert in or where your impact is, right? Then you should have a clarity of message. Do you know what you want to say? Do you know how to say it to other people? Do you know how to share very clearly without rambling on for 20 minutes who you are, what you do, and what you stand for? Never enter a networking event selling to try to get a client. You are only there to sell you. You're there to be you. You're there to share who you are, and you're there to meet someone new. I look at it like a dinner party. Deborah, if you invited my husband and I over and you said, hey, Colleen, come on up to Vancouver. We're going to have 8 couples over. We'd love to meet you. When you walk in the room, you're not going to walk up to someone and say, hey, my name's Colleen Biggs and I own these businesses and blah, 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 right? And start throwing your business cards at them. You're going to be like, hey, I'm Colleen. This is my husband, Robert. We live in Arizona. We've got 7 kids. Our 12th grandson was just born. Where do you guys live? How do you guys know Deborah? It's a conversation. And so many of us enter a networking event thinking that we are being judged, thinking that we have to have it all together, thinking that we have to know exactly what our offer is and we have to put the right thing in chat, or we have to have the right thing on our business card. And if we don't hand out so many, no one's going to follow up with us. She's a freak. I'm just like tense talking about it and thinking about it, Deborah, right? You too? Okay.
Mm-hmm.
So let's just look at the ease of networking. You're there to get to know someone. You could meet a BFF there. You could meet someone that you're like, oh, when Deborah and I met, I was like, yep, you're my kind of girl. Same energy. I love what you do. I personally invited Deborah to come and check out something I was doing because she could get a better idea of who I was by watching me do something in action. But we already knew we wanted to do stuff together. We already knew we were connected by energy. You will feel that with another person, whether in person or whether on a screen, in networking. So remember, when you go into a room, just be yourself. Just be yourself. And if you feel uncomfortable in the room, if you feel uncomfortable being around the people, they're maybe saying things that aren't just landing with you. They're not standing for what you stand for. Maybe they're not attracting the same people you do. I'm just going to tell you, those are red flags. You're in the wrong group. And don't be afraid to leave that group and not go back. So many times we're kind enough to just stay and put up with it. No, girl, you've got no time for that. Get out of the group. It's not your group. Go find the group that resonates with you. And that's what I say. There's millions of women in this world. The women that resonate with my message, that resonate with who I am, that like the way I do things, will keep coming back and invite people time after time again. If they aren't, they're not my person. They're not my people. We surround ourselves with people that are our people. That becomes your net worth. Because if you're surrounding yourself with haters and negativity and people that aren't fueling you, they will keep you held down like an anchor in an air balloon, and you will just waste your energy trying to blow that fire and all of that as long as you can, and you will burn out. And that's usually why businesses fail. They just keep treading their wheels because they're not surrounding themselves with people that open doors, that aren't afraid for them to walk in first, that fuel them. And to me, networking is just like a launching board for that. It's a launching pad for us to be able to soar when you're in the right group. Did you feel that way, Deborah, in that group at all? Did you feel like those women wanted to help you and empower you?
Well, that's it, right? So, I got invited by a guest who I trusted, who obviously had a great experience with you. So I came on, and I think it's really important that you stated that someone who has been networking for 30 years like me felt uncomfortable. That I think is perfectly normal. And I think it's important because you're evaluating your situation and they're probably evaluating you, and that's healthy. It's functional. That's not, pretending that you're not uncomfortable to at least yourself. It's okay to smile and be uncomfortable. It's okay to say, hi, my name is Deborah and I'm with, Mission Accepted or whatever, and be nervous inside. It's the essence of the experience of the group. So if you're uncomfortable, but it seems like a great place to go, like, wow, these women are really cool, they're almost too nice to be true, then yes, that's the group for you. If you're the piece that's not, if you're the piece that just needs to get comfortable with this new group, or how does this system work, or what do they do, or is it every Thursday, or what's my expectations, those kind of things. I think it's good to just, if it feels good, and if you're the uncomfortable one, but yet it feels good, keep going, because success comes from being uncomfortable. I always tell people you make more of a paycheck when you're uncomfortable than when you do when you're comfortable, right?
Yes.
But I do agree with you. If it's not right, women tend to try to make the square and the hole work together. If you're not comfortable there, it's not you. that you need to examine. It's a simple business decision that says there's probably an organization that serves me better, that I can serve better as well. That's it. It's just a business decision. You don't need to get psychoanalyzed on it. Just
I'm going to tell you right now, if you're uncomfortable being in the spotlight, I'm not your organization, because that's what everything I do for women. I believe in keeping women in the spotlight and serving my members over and over and over again. It's why I have a podcast. It's why I have spotlights where I do live interviews with them. It's why I give them the opportunity to submit blogs. It's why they run master classes that I organize and register women for. I do this to keep my members in the spotlight. So if that's uncomfortable for you and you don't want to ever, be in that spotlight where other people are looking at you, I'm not the right organization, because that's what my organization is all about. It's about, being seen, being heard, and being visible. Those are my three things.
Right.
And if you don't like that, I have women that come to my networking events, Deborah, and their cameras off the whole time. I'm like, what the heck? Right. And then when I say, okay, we're going to go into our first breakout room, I hear 3 people drop off. Like, or someone will not show up and they'll send me an email and say, can I get a recording of that? I'm like, no, it was a networking event. There is no recording. Yes, I get everyone all amped up for the first 20 minutes and I share a message and I want to educate and I do all of that. But then it's about you talking to other women and the relationships that you're going to gain from that. If you don't show up live, then there's nothing to watch. There is nothing, you know what I mean? Like, so
absolutely. Yeah.
Put your camera on, show up, but maybe it's making them uncomfortable to show up. And that's why I do it in the beginning. I mentioned a safe and nurturing environment. I learned that from a long time ago in a business I worked for. We catered to children and created a safe and nurturing environment for them. And I just resonate with that so much. And it's not just for children. It's for entrepreneurs, it's for men, it's for families, it's for first-time mothers, anyone that's doing something for the first time or doing something that they're a little nervous about or uncomfortable about. It's our responsibility as the leaders to create a safe and nurturing environment so that they don't feel judged, so they feel like they can be themselves in that group. And if it still isn't for that person after they've tried it, then that's okay, because I would prefer that person find the group that they resonate with, like you said, Deborah, because that's going to be the group that helps them soar. And that's what we're all about. That's why we're doing what we're doing.
Absolutely. Yeah. Now I'm going to divert us a little bit and I'm going to get into our little controversial conversation because there's so many people that feel the same way. I literally was having this conversation with myself this morning around some aspect of social media. And it's interesting because, I'm a 57-year-old woman who's got a lot of experience in business belly to belly. And so the world of social media was something new that I needed to learn about. And honestly, the last 3 years I've been in social media university because I also run an organization and I have an 18-year-old launching his first company. So whether I like it or not, I'm taking a class on TikTok because whether I choose to use it or not, I need to either one, know it for my organization and know it well. And 2, there's upcoming millennials and Gen Zs. And one of the weeks out of my podcast, we focus is on Gen Zs as us. And guess what? My 18-year-old's taking speaking classes to learn how to do interviews. I mean, this is the new thing. So from an information standpoint, it's my job and I'll learn it. From a 57-year-old woman who's been very successful in business without doing social media, it's been I wanted to use a word that wouldn't probably describe it politically correct. It's been a very opposite, do I, don't I, do I really want to, do I don't, but I loved your forwardness with your opinion around social media and what that's been like for you. So can you please share, because a lot of people need to hear they have choice around social media.
Yeah, we do. I have met so many people that will tell. I just had someone at my last event. I hold a sanctuary once a year where women come for 5 days and they do a big transformation, and we rent a big mansion in Arizona, and we have a chef. And so there's a lot of pampering, but a lot of work, self-work, right? And she is a speaker, trainer, and she's called to help people share their message. And she said, I don't do anything on social media. And she said, I don't like it. I don't want to do it. And I work directly with people. I do events. I do online events. Now that's social media, if you ask me, when you're doing online stuff, right? But
Right.
I think what our thought behind social media is, are you interacting with people on social media? Are you liking? Are you following? Are you sharing? Are you commenting, right? Are you posting? Are you going live? Are all these things? It just like you load all that in a basket and someone's like, how do I fit that into a day? Are you going live on TikTok? Then are you sharing it on YouTube? Then when you put it on YouTube, are you putting in all the comments? Because someone has to see all the comments if they want to click and follow you. You're not doing your follow through. And it's like, oh my gosh, how do I fit that into what I'm doing already today? And it comes down to this. I hire people to do the things that necessarily is not my expertise. Do I go live? Absolutely. That's me sharing a message. So I do that. Where I struggle, honestly, Deborah, is the engaging, the following, the commenting, doing all of these things, because I don't know about you, but when I pick up my cell phone at the end of the day, because I keep my phone on silent, I check it just a couple times a day, but I'm not really one of those that is, I'm on my computer, so I can do most of it there. When I pick up my phone at the end of the day, it's hundreds of notifications, hundreds. Do I want to take time out of my day to be communicating and continuing to communicate with people outside of my house? Or do I want to be present and show up for my family at that point? And so I asked myself those questions when I'm on during the day and I do social media things. I do them during the day, but it is not my favorite thing. And I'll be 1,000% honest, Deborah. If it dropped off the face of the earth tomorrow and all social media was gone, I wouldn't cry. I wouldn't have a grieving moment. I would just be like, okay, time to find another way for us to be able to share what it is that we're doing. But I also see the brilliance of online technology and TikTok. I mean, I have TikTok videos out there, right? I was doing a word of a day for several months and it helped me engage more followers. It helped people learn about me. People need to know, like, and trust you before they'll do business with you. So how do you do that the best way possible? And instead of spreading yourself thin and doing the have-tos that you see everybody else doing, do what it is that you want to do to attract the right people that you're trying to attract. And if you feel like your customers are getting older and older and your new buying customers are getting younger and younger, then you need to go where they are at. And if social media or TikTok or YouTube is where they're at, that's where you need to go. And I also say, be your own customer. When you go to find somebody, when you go to find a group, when you go to find information, where do you go to look for it? So if you're going to Google and Googling it in, if you're going to YouTube to find any video on how to, then your butt better be out there doing videos on how to for other people so they can find you. I mean, honestly, let's just be real about it, right? So do I loathe it? Yeah, in a way, I really do. But do I think it's necessary? Me, somewhat. It depends on who you're trying to attract. And so someone asked the question in an event that I was in yesterday, Deborah. So I'll be honest. They said, where do you get the most traction? Which social media platform do you get the most from? I said, the most exposure, Facebook, make the most money, LinkedIn. Right. Those are my two. So there's two different types of social media. Where do you get exposure, but where are you making money from? Where are people actually engaging, following through, showing up, and then hiring you? Or how are you finding, LinkedIn is that place for me. So that's where I spend a little bit more of my time.
And I think, thank you so much for being transparent, because I think it's important to do your market research. Where are your people? Define for yourself how much time that you want to spend, what can be farmed out, what can you do. When this all first started to happen, as you know, I publish books, right? So I publish books for entrepreneurs. And I have wanted to publish a book because when this hit, and we were all racing the social media to learn. And honestly, I think learning about social media took people out of income producing activities quite a bit in a lot of businesses, right? And people got very I always say their prefrontal cortex got full instead of saying, the other words. And I was getting a lot of calls from women in my demographic that were like, I'm out. Like, I'm out. And they're like, I can't, and I don't want to learn this new way. And I'm like, okay, let's talk through that. Find one that you're on already, and then expand that instead of trying to do 10. And I don't know how many people can do 10 unless you have a lot of money for assistance, like you said. But the other thing is, I really wanted to write a book. I did. I wanted, I do these anthologies where I bring people together, and maybe we'll talk about that. But I want to bring a book together, because I was like, there was a lot of women that I said, this is not the time to leave your business. They're like, I can't compete with 20-year-olds. I'm like, you don't have to compete with 20-year-olds. You may have to learn the technology that 20-year-olds are using. But here's why I decided to do the podcast with someone who's like Gen Y to Gen Z or whatever, all the boomers, second boomers, apparently, is there's skills that we have that they don't have. And that, I think, is where I love the remembrance of networking groups, shaking hands, being able to talk about your business, getting clear. They don't have that necessarily. And so they're learning skills. I know I've got one in learning skills. And so I think if we can bridge that together somehow, that would be okay. And that was kind of the saving grace for, honestly, so many women my age calling me going, I don't know how you're doing it. I don't want to do this. This is not. And I'm like, no one said it would be fun, just may be necessary. But there are some people that, for me, they were like, okay, you know what? I think this is my exit strategy. I think this is time for me to exit out. And I'm like, I'm going to write a book, and I'm going to have a book of women over 50 that have had to go through that process.
It's interesting because I wrote a book somewhat similar to what you're talking about in 2021. And that was my latest anthology book. I launched 5. I don't even know how that was possible in 2021. I don't know what got in me, but it was like the year of being on fire, right? And the book is called Step Into the Spotlight to Expand Your Influence and Attract the Right Clients. And I got together 11 authors, and they're all from, one is an Instagram influencer, and all she does is Instagram. That is her bread and butter. It's how she became famous. It's how she got, 500,000 followers. Another one is stages. She talks about how to do it virtually, how to have a presence virtually on, stages. And then when we go back, how to do it, in person. Another one was about your vision and how it's important to know your vision and what your goals are, and then line up the right spotlights that help you get to that vision. So we have everywhere from in-person networking advice to speaking, to Instagram, to why TikTok can be fun and cool. All of these women we're talking about, and these women are all, 45 to 65 in this book. And I just wanted women to realize that the number one rule in business is to tell everyone about you, because you just don't know who's out there waiting, right? You got to tell everybody about you. How are you doing that? And just like you said, you need to pick the one that's right for you and go with it. Don't listen to what everyone else is saying you have to do. Do you know how many clients, Deborah, I have that say it's exhausting to post 5 days a week on all these social media outlets? I said, well, what is your purpose on doing that? Well, because that's what everyone says I have to do. I'm like, who's everyone? Well, that's what everyone's doing. So why are you doing that? Do you like doing it? No. Or do you feel like you're just throwing stuff out there to see what sticks? Yeah. Okay. Why don't you purposefully look at one of those and work with one of those? It doesn't make sense that you're killing yourself. I don't even post 5 days a week. Right. I might go live 4 times in one day, and you might not hear from me for 2 more days. Right. So it's not an everyday thing. The algorithms change relentless all the time. To keep up with that is impossible. You know that, Deborah. So I say, pick what works for you, and it doesn't matter what anyone else thinks. For goodness sake, just do what feels good for you. Right?
Absolutely. I want to kind of throw a mix in here. So we've been talking a lot about, networking, what to do, how to do it. Lots around, clarity. I think, if I was to say there was a word that I really picked up through a lot of what you talked about, whether it's on social media, whether you're walking into a room and handshaking with somebody, whether you're coming on to a networking event that's online, It's all about getting clear, having conversations with other people. That's been really, really, really interesting for people to go have conversations with other people and say, what do you see when you think of me? What are the names that come? What are the words that come? I always tell people, pull from those words. Oh, so you're kind, you're talkative, you're laughing, you love music, da, da, da. So if you don't know how to introduce yourself, maybe ask 10 people in your world. When you think of me, you're going to see some consistencies. Oh, you're super funny, or you're a great cook, and it can be something bizarre that you wouldn't think you'd introduce yourself. So if you're at a networking event, you're like, hi, I'm Deborah, and I absolutely love cooking Christmas dinner, vegan Christmas dinner, right? And, people they're like, oh, well, that's really interesting. It gives you something to talk about, like you said, other than your business. It lets people in a little bit, but it's something that people kind of know about you. And so I'm going to kind of throw a little bit of a whole different conversation here. So Colleen, you've been in business for a long time. You obviously have advised many women, and I don't know if you work with men, but you've come from corporate, so I imagine you've worked with both on how to have more success in their business, and probably, let's face it, a lot more esteem about who they are. What are some of the really cool surprises that have happened for you? If you can think of one or maybe two things that caught you off guard, like going into this world of entrepreneurship, you never thought you'd meet, Keith Urban, or you never thought you'd, that's what happened to one of my podcast people. But what surprised you? What was cool? What like, you know what I mean?
Well, I'm first going to go with what surprised me the most was how much I needed other people. Entrepreneurship seems like a lonely road. And because I had coached so many entrepreneurs, I was like, I got this. I know how to launch a business. I know how to run a business. I've been doing this as a coach for so many years with hundreds of CEOs, and I know exactly how to do this. No, actually, I didn't. And so I hired a coach. So I thought I did, but here's what happens. We're all, this in a picture frame on a wall. That's where I like to say. So you're in this frame, and if you're a picture on a wall and you picture yourself in the frame, you can only see maybe the dining room, the hallway, and part of the living room. Your coach can walk the entire house, right? They see the whole lay of the land. They can see everything from an outside perspective, and they can be great guidance for you. So number one, on the bad side, I thought that launching a business would be like piece of cake. Nope, wasn't. So that was the first knock me over the head with the 2x4 moment that I had. Second to that was my worth, because coming from corporate America, was tied to what I made. Because in corporate America, they pay you what you're worth. They pay you based on the job description that you do, you're paid for. So you walk out of corporate America believing I'm worth this amount of money I was making. But that's so not true. And that's so damaging to an individual, because that's not what your true worth is. Your true worth is infinite, right? But tying that to a dollar amount, damaging. That was the second thing, knocked me on my ass. I'm just gonna be honest. Like I got knocked on my ass pretty hard twice in the very beginning. What surprised me the most was the conversations, the kindness, the love that women truly have for each other. I'm coming from corporate America, and I swear the only women you meet in corporate America want to like stab you in the back and put a dagger in your eye. And I'm just going to be honest. It was not a fun situation where everyone was competing with everyone. And if you tried to climb a ladder, there was a female above you trying to kick you in the face and knock you off the ladder. And I was just sickened by it. I figured all women were that way. I'm going to be honest. I figured they all were, because these were women I looked up to in corporate America, and they were treating me that way. And very few women were confident enough with themselves. And at the time, I didn't know that's what it was, that they could hold their own, right? When I became a female entrepreneur and met other ones, these women were confident enough to take the leap, to start a business and believe enough in themselves, even though they're not maybe where they need to be, they're still taking the leap, confident enough, and they have empathy, they have love, they have support, they want to collaborate. And I was so shocked at how many other women I felt were like me in the world that I had never met before in my life. And that was just like, wow, they weren't afraid to open doors for me. They weren't afraid to introduce me with people, like famous people I've met along the way. I don't know. I'm not a name dropper, Deborah. I've met Jesse Itzler. I've met, Sarah Blakely. I've met so many other, authors, and Mike Michalowicz, sent me a package a couple months ago because, he's some big author that did Profit First, and I got on his radar somehow. So, a lot of these big people that have written all these books and been #1 bestsellers, I do a podcast. So I meet a lot of them. Liz Bruner's another one, big, interviewer of Barack Obama and Oprah Winfrey. And she had a big journalist, career for years. They're just people, like we're people. And so, we put people on pedestals. They don't put themselves there. We put them there. So when you know that you're just on this playing field with other entrepreneurs that are trying to be our best, leaning into who we are, serving others, trying to make an impact, empowering other people, I only surround myself with those people anymore. And it has made a world of difference in my life, like total different outlook on the world.
Absolutely. Well, those are some great surprises to share, because sometimes it looks like it's going to be easy and you come up against an obstacle, and you just need to know that other people have gone through it. That's why it's called Mission Accepted. And, when Danny, she actually was a country singer from Australia who's now in LA, and it was her little heart pitter patter. And Keith Urban had to walk by her when she was busking sometime. And that was a confirmation sign for her, right? And so those were those moments, right? So that was a surprise moment for her. But there's a lot of beauty in taking risk and challenge and being an entrepreneur. And, if you're one of our listeners or viewers and you're watching, and entrepreneurship doesn't have to be a full-time thing like myself and Colleen. It can be that passion project, that you have really always wanted to do. And I got called, a friend of mine, a friend of a friend asked me for lunch, and, our schedules are pretty jammed up. And I was like, what's it about? Like you want me to go meet you for lunch? And they're like, well, and I just felt this urgency, and I was like, no idea. Last I heard of this person, I was buying some cookies from his daughter because she needed money for a horse racing something. I don't know. Someone said, I just say yes. Right. And so he's, I would say, probably a solid 5-7 years older than me. And he's like, I just need to be an entrepreneur. I have this idea and I'm just so jammed up. And he goes, my 104-year-old ex-father-in-law turned to me and said, when are you, like at what point are you going to do this? And I'm like, okay, so you don't have to turn your life upside down, but you not need to do this. Do you have clarity? And I'm like, okay, you need this coach and this coach and this coach. But the point is, you can be that fulfilled person 5 hours, 10 hours, or however many hours that you choose to be, right? So I'm so grateful that there's women out there that have had that experience, as well as seeing the difference, seeing women in their different place. And there's a lot of camaraderie that comes together because we have a unified mission. Whether you're an entrepreneur, man or woman, whether you are a creative man or woman, we have an ultimate, which is why I wanted to include everybody in this podcast in that way. Someone trying to break themselves out as a singer, or someone trying to get themselves from 4 figures to 5 figures to 6 figures to 7 figures, or what have you. There is a calling that tends to live somewhere inside. And it's a crazy ride. It's a journey. So
it is. And we should never do it alone. Always
right.
Go find other people, your squad, your tribe, your whatever you want to call it. Find other people to take the journey with you, because the people that you surround yourself with, you're going to be a very similar salaries or very similar, income. You're going to run in similar circles. So, it is your net worth. Just remember that, and find the right people to surround yourself with, and who you have conversations with, and who you allow in to your world. because if it's a bunch of negative people, it's going to be a battle for you and you're going to struggle. But if you surround yourself with people that you love, you work with only the clients that you crave to work with, your life will be so much easier and it's enjoyable. Like I love my life. I enjoy my life every day. I thank God for all the freedoms, all the choices that I have. And I'm like #unemployable. I cannot work for someone else ever again. So I know this is my only option. So if this is my only option, it's going to be the best that I can ever live my life until the day I die.
Wow.
Yeah.
Well, I think that's a great way to kind of end off. The only thing I want to add to that is when you go into the world of entrepreneurship, please don't wait till you have the money before you hire the coach. Don't wait till you have the money before you take this. It is a continuum of risk. And as you level up or level out and expand or what have you, sometimes you gotta put it forward and then watch it come, so it's very different that way, but there's lots of people that have taken risks. And as Colleen has attested to, it's changed their lives. So with that, if you are listening or if you are watching, thank you so much for supporting Mission Accepted. Please share this to whomever you feel needs to hear this episode, as well as if you think you have an episode in you. If you want to come on, don't worry. You don't need to be, you may never have done an interview before. We're going to help you through that. So if you'd like to come on to Mission Accepted and you have a calling and you are out there making change, please contact me. Let's have a private conversation about what that looks like for you. And Colleen, thank you again so much. Now, where can people find you? What's your website address? We'll have your information, obviously, but where can they find you?
The easiest place to find me is ColleenBiggs.net. We have meetup groups, we have events, we have everything. So ColleenBiggs.net, fastest way. You can find me online at Colleen Biggs. There's so many other ways to connect with me, but that's the fastest way.
Awesome. Okay, well, thanks again. And thank you, audience. We will see you again shortly, at least in 1 week, with another new amazing entrepreneur to share their tips and trades with you. Thanks.